Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy that you're here. Please subscribe and hit the like button so you don't miss out on any content. Today I have a dresser makeover. We're taking it from a splotchy, shiny blue to a matte blue in the same, like a similar color. This is my first time using the Krylon chalky finish paint. And again, I tried to mimic the same color. I love the navy with the gold accents. I needed some supplies, of course, paintbrush, paint stirrer, and a screwdriver and a rag to kind of clean up as I go. Here's all of my hardware that I have. Now I'm going to start by opening the paint with my little paint key here, and as you can see, it's a gorgeous rich blue, and the main difference is it's going to be matte, and it's all actually going to be a one even color. I always like starting on the far left from the back of the dresser or item of furniture and painting towards the front, so towards me. I went halfway, a little over halfway to the middle, and I'm just really concentrating on that left-hand side of the piece, just doing long, even strokes and making sure that I'm applying a pretty decent amount of paint. You want to be pretty generous with the amount of paint that you put on your item, and then move around the paint on the item. You don't want to get it to where like the brush is kind of skipping, where it doesn't have enough paint, because that's where you can get some really serious brush strokes. I'm just going to kind of continue this on, and then as I'm moving over to the right side of the piece, I'm going to make sure that if there are any brush strokes, that it really blends in. I'm not too sure about this color, guys. It's much lighter, like a lighter shade or tone of blue than I had anticipated, which is all good. So I'm actually going to dry it with a hairdryer and see if that darkens the color of the paint at all, because the color on the top of the paint that he gave me at the Lowe's paint department matched it perfectly. So I'm going to kind of finish the right side of the piece, and then I do off camera where I kind of try to dry it with a hairdryer to see if that makes the color any darker. I did make sure to ask if the color was a little off, what the return policy was, and they said that if it wasn't perfect, just go ahead and bring it back in, and they would get a color that did match perfectly. Round two, guys. I went back, return policy was great at Lowe's. I brought in a little bit more of the color so they could match a little bit more even. I believe this one's just called Navy, and I'm kind of just going through and repeating the same steps as before, starting from the left part of the article of furniture and moving over to the right. One thing you want to be really careful about once you get to the front part is if there's any areas that dripped on the top part, just making sure that you go through and blend that down on the sides. If you wait too long to blend those little drips, if you will, it's going to dry, and then of course you're going to have a little bit of a raised drip on the side of your piece. So just making sure that you go through the front of the piece. You still want to use a lot of paint, but just making sure that you're going through and just really being mindful of any drips that may occur. I'm going through and kind of cleaning up as I go. Also, if you notice, I had to do some paint tape at the bottom to make sure that the blue did not transfer onto the gold paint at the bottom of or the feet of my dresser. I'm just getting a nice even coat, going to the sides to see if any of those drips happened. Now I'm actually going to grab some wood filler. There's a little bit of a nick on one of the drawers. I've never worked with wood filler before. I actually just ordered it from Amazon, so I'm kind of excited. It was a little hard to open at first, so I had to go through and actually saw off the tip part. Anyways, got it on there, kind of pressing it down with my fingertip. However, it does take, I believe they suggested 2 hours to dry. I did not know this, so I am going to apply it, press it down, make sure it's as even as I can get it, and then once it dries, I'll sand it down. And as you can tell, I put the dressers on the backside, so the face that I'm actually painting is facing upwards and just kind of going back and forth across the dresser, similar to the motion that I did on the top of the dresser. One thing that I did do, however, I wish I could undo it, is I painted not the top of the dresser, but where the dresser opens. So the top of the dresser drawer. So once you actually are looking down into the drawer, I painted that top little rim of the drawer, and it actually at the end of it made it kind of difficult to open. So I did have to go back and actually sand that off. However, learning curve, I won't do that again. Another thing that I had noticed is the amount of paint that I used was a significant amount, and it actually pushed through where the screws screw into the hardware and dripped down into the bottom, so the opposite side of the drawer, but no big deal. Now we got the dresser moved up to my room. I am actually going to use some black contact paper that I actually had left over from another DIY. If you didn't check that one out, it is a black apartment-friendly rental option for, again, a black accent wall. And I'm just kind of taking the contact paper that I had left over, working that into the bottom of the drawer there. So I have a little flat piece of a clock that I'm using to go through and really even out the contact paper. I did that on all of the drawers. Now I'm going back through and we're actually placing the hardware on. So it's just normal hardware, 2 screws, and a Phillips screwdriver. I'm going in and actually doing this by hand, which hindsight, I probably should have just grabbed my drill. It would have been done in no time, but it's fine. Again, all of the learning curves, I would suggest if you're doing this at home, go ahead and grab that drill because, again, it will speed up the process tremendously. Another side note, I did try to push through some of the screws as the paint was wet to kind of make sure that the holes for the screws stayed nice and open. There's a few that were a little bit difficult to push through, so I literally had to go in from the front of the drawer and kind of push through the screw that way and kind of just almost like wiggle it back through the hole, so the hole opened up and the paint kind of got out from the inside of the hole. And again, just another learning curve. So if you guys have any tips and tricks of how to keep that from happening, I would love to hear it, because that's, I feel like, one of my struggles on all of the pieces that I paint. It always kind of gets a little tight and more difficult to actually get the screw into its hole. Overall, I'm super excited about how the piece turned out. And there were a few brush strokes on the top of the piece, which I'm looking into getting a wax coat. And again, if you have any experience working with a wax and if that kind of evens out any brush strokes, or if you have any tips and tricks to kind of go back over the top of it, just right on the top of the piece where the TV is sitting, you can see a little bit of a brush stroke happening, which I didn't mind it because I did long continuous brush strokes. It just kind of almost looks like the texture of wood. So I may just leave it. I don't know, I'm not too sure yet. But I was thinking of going back over the piece with, again, either a clear wax to set it and hopefully really work out some of those brush strokes, and possibly even a black wax. So I will do this on a separate video, but if you guys have any experience working with the black wax, originally when I got the piece it was a little bit darker, so I'm hoping that that'll kind of enhance the piece. But here we go, guys, finished product. So if you like this, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and we'll see you soon.